Good afternoon. This is Andre Lamar, features reporter for Delaware Online and the Delaware News Journal. We are here on a special day, Thursday, for the first day of Firefly Music Festival. It's kind of crazy to think that this is the 10th anniversary of the festival, but we're definitely here right now. We are in front of the media tent where we get our credentials. We're right here next to the Chipotle and Dover International Speedway. So this festival is going to be a 4-day affair. Opening night tonight, the headliner is going to be Halsey. On Friday, the headliner is going to be My Chemical Romance. Saturday, it's going to be Green Day. And Sunday, it's going to be Dua Lipa. She's one of the hottest artists out right now. And we have an opener and a woman who's opening, and we also have a closer and a woman who's opening. And the context for that is a few years ago on social media, some of the fans were upset that Firefly didn't have enough women headliners or any women headliners at that time. And in response to that, Firefly has brought in women headliners. We've seen people like Billie Eilish, who headlined last year. She was actually supposed to headline the year of the pandemic, but that didn't happen because they didn't have a festival in 2020. And that year, yes, so there was also supposed to be another woman headlining that year, too. Halsey was also supposed to headline, I believe, that year. And now we're here, opening night. Some of the other folks, some of the lower artists, smaller artists, but also notable artists that are going to be performing this weekend is Willow, Will Smith's daughter. She's going to be performing tonight. Some other folks that people would probably have a better idea of is T-Pain. He's performing. And the band Haim, they're also performing too, Avril Lavigne. And we're also going to have a smaller artist, a local artist, but she's a prodigy. DJ Sofia rocks. DJ Sofia, she is a freshman at Cesar Rodney High School. She's locally from Dover. She only lives a few minutes away from the festival, and she is the youngest artist performing at Firefly this year at age 14. DJ Sofia is a prodigy turntablist. She's a DJ Jazzy Jeff approved DJ. DJ Jazzy Jeff actually invited her to come out personally to his home in Bear, Delaware over the pandemic, and that's something that he doesn't do with everyone. So the girl is really, really talented. In addition to that, she recently, just a few weeks ago, started working with the Baltimore Ravens. She did an event in Baltimore at their stadium. She's also played Madison Square Garden, I believe it's 4 times now. Her latest appearance was during the game in April when the New York Knicks played the Cleveland Cavaliers. So even though she's 14, her resume is impeccable. She's doing things that even folks twice her age, 3 times her age have never done and probably never will do. So she's opening up the Pavilion stage, which is a pretty big stage for EDM artists. Groups like the Chainsmokers, Cheat Codes. Also, I believe DJ Jazzy Jeff also played that stage as well in the past, her mentor. So she's opening that up on Saturday as the first artist that day. So folks can come and check her out. So right now, and it feels pretty good because it's not raining. It's been raining on and off today. In moments, it's in buckets, and in other moments, it's kind of in a drizzle. Right now, there's no rain, thankfully. This is the only day that rain is projected according to the Weather Channel. Now, it's supposed to rain on Sunday, the last day of the last Sunday night. But other than that, it shouldn't rain Sunday day. Friday, it's not supposed to rain. Neither is it supposed to rain on Saturday as well. So in very serendipitous fashion, it would make sense, though, that it would be a little wet today because it also rained the first day of Firefly back when it launched in 2012 with headliner Jack White. That was a day that a lot of people who came that year fondly remember because he was playing in the rain. Folks were singing along with him. And it was a pretty wild night. And just in addition to that, that's back when Firefly was a little bit different than what it's become right now. At that time, back in 2012, Firefly was a new thing. It was just a baby at that point. It also geared to a little bit of an older demographic. There were more folks over 30, a little bit more middle-aged people. Still had college kids there, but the music, the lineup, it was more of kind of like an alternative indie festival. It was a tiny bit of rap, not very much, but a lot of bands. That year, the headliners were the Killers, Jack White from the White Stripes, and it was also the Black Keys. So it was a pretty interesting year. Since then, it's grown from that being a 3-day affair, which was a little bit smaller. I think the attendance at that point was maybe around 30,000 or so, maybe around 30 to 40,000. And since then, over the years, the festival has now grown into a 4-day affair, which is where we're at right now. At its peak in 2015, when Paul McCartney was a headliner, it attracted over 90,000 fans. That year was the year to date that has had the greatest attendance at Firefly. It hasn't seen over 90,000 since. Firefly kind of doesn't like to give out their stats for attendance every year, but just kind of eyeballing it, it's maybe looking like attendance has maybe been around maybe like 60,000. Last year, attendance was smaller because of the pandemic. So that year it wasn't. There was a kind of a little bit of a controversy, or yeah, it was a little bit of a controversial year because major festivals were. They didn't really, most major festivals did not happen in 2020. So some were trying to see if they could actually do it in 2021, and it was a little iffy because we were still in the thick of COVID. But Firefly was able to launch without a hitch. It was not a super spreader event. And Firefly, that was the first year that Firefly launched in the fall, in September. This year is the second year that the festival launched in the fall. Traditionally, in the first year, Firefly launched in July, and since then, it launched in June. 2 months where it's super, super hot and people are always getting dehydrated. Still having a good time, but, a lot of sun poisoning. And now, this is the second year that it's happening in the fall. And it's kind of interesting because it's sort of looking like it's mirroring a little bit of the first year where it skews a little bit older, and you're still getting a number of college students here, but also a little bit more middle-aged people too. One thing I've noticed last year, and I wonder if this will be an encore this year, is last year there were a lot of new faces that came to Firefly, more than I've ever seen before, and I've been here every year. I think what happened was, from some of the people I've talked to and also just from some theories that I developed, I think what happened is a lot of people wanted to come in 2020, the year that the pandemic started, but they couldn't. And when it got postponed to 2021, there were a lot of people, just like we all know, a lot of people were kind of climbing the walls to do something fun, to get out the house. So it encouraged some people that even weren't thinking about going in 2020. It encouraged a new group of people that wanted to just try something new, but it also brought in the people that intended to go the year that it didn't happen. So yeah, it was a little bit smaller. I mean, it was still thousands, tens of thousands of people here last year, but it was still a good time. Not a lot of people wearing masks, but at the same time, it wasn't a super spreader event, so it wasn't necessary. People were getting tested, and people could also present their vaccination cards. So people were still having a really good time. And yeah, so we're here now this weekend. It's going to be pretty interesting. By gauging it, it looks like Friday and Saturday are definitely going to be the most popular days of the festival, in my prediction. If I were to flip a coin, I'd probably say Saturday is probably going to be the bigger day because Green Day's playing that day. Sean O'Sullivan, one of the organizers for Firefly, actually told us before the start of the festival that they've been looking at Green Day for a few years. Green Day is the headliner for Saturday. So they're a band that was on the Firefly bucket list. They get to cross that off this year. I think with Green Day being such a big band, it's going to bring out a lot of people. But in addition to that, Saturday naturally is a day that is more convenient for people to come if they're only coming for one day instead of all four, because they don't have to take off of work. So I think Saturday is probably going to be a little bit bigger than Friday, but Friday I think is going to be a huge day too, because bands like My Chemical Romance, they're coming. They're a pretty big deal. There's a lot of people who grew up listening to them, so there's a lot of nostalgia there. And in addition to that, there's also a lot of pop punk bands that have a lot of nostalgia surrounding them. There's groups like Avril Lavigne. There's also groups like All Time Low. People really, really love that kind of music. So they're bringing in that kind of audience that night. So Friday and Saturday is going to be really, really interesting. And Sunday, as I mentioned, artists like T-Pain is going to be playing, where Dua Lipa is going to be headlining. So Firefly is it's just wild. It's kind of surreal to think that we're actually in the 10th year right now because so much stuff has happened. It's just kind of come like it's come so quickly. Some of the notable moments over the course of Firefly includes actor Terry Crews. He was here hanging out one time. One time there was also the Red Hot Chili Peppers who played. I believe the artist Flea ran into the media tent one time when he was here, and this was really, really early in the festival's career. So we've had other folks like Bob Dylan. He's played the festival. Eminem, Kendrick Lamar's been here multiple times. 21 Pilots has also headlined and played multiple times. There's so many artists that have graced the stage at Firefly, and a lot of them have never played Firefly. A number of artists, especially headliners who've played Firefly, have never played in Delaware before. So I remember when Firefly first started, a lot of people were kind of like, man, this is... Well, for the people who knew about the festivals, a lot of people still didn't know about it the first year. Some people were still... They were kind of stoked because they were like, well, there's a major festival in Delaware, and a lot of people didn't see that happening. But the way that sort of went down is, for a festival of this size, you need a lot of space. So it makes sense to kind of have it in an area where there's like a lot of maybe farmland. The space that they're operating out of now is called the Woodlands. That's a space that NASCAR, Dover International Speedway, would use for some of their campers. So it made sense that Firefly would be interested in having a festival here because you had a lot of space because they accommodate a lot of the NASCAR fans. But in addition to that, it's not enough to just have a large space. You also have to have the right infrastructure. The fact that Dover International Speedway is here, they have an infrastructure that's conducive to things like Wi-Fi. So it was just a hand-in-glove fit for when the organizers decided to come to Delaware. So it wasn't necessarily just like picking a name out of the hat. It was a spot that where the stars really aligned, and it just so happened to be in the state's capital. So 10 years in, we are here, Firefly. Starting to drizzle a little bit right now, but that's also what the Weather Channel said too, so there's really no shock. But Firefly has a history of a lot of rain, not just on the first day. I mean, there have been times where, for anyone who hasn't been, this is another thing too, a number of people in Delaware have never been to Firefly before, even though it's been here for a decade. This festival attracts people from all over the country. I mean, you get people from California. I met people from Indiana. I think someone who has come the longest distance to Firefly was two guys from Canada. They told me it took them 20 plus hours to drive to get here, and this was maybe around 2013, 2014. And the reason why I mention that is, even though I'm talking about this festival, a lot of people in Delaware have never been here. So if you've never been, the Woodlands, the area, so there's a lot of grassy space where people can watch shows and kind of hang out in the grass, but there's also a big dirt, gravelly pathway that you walk on. And it's pretty wide, but that area can get really muddy if it gets wet. And last year it was a mess. I mean, it swallows shoes, it devours sandals. I mean, you can literally Google photos and find photos on Google or even on Facebook of just a random thong sandal that's just kind of trapped in the mud. So it gets pretty real out here. You got to protect your feet. For anyone who is going to be coming with a day pass or who wants to get a day pass to go to Firefly, you can go to fireflymusicfestival.com, fireflyfestival.com to get a pass and to get any information that you need to know about the festival. But yeah, it's for anyone who hasn't come but is going to come, definitely protect your feet. A lot of rookies make the mistake of wearing cute shoes because they want to gain attention. No one's looking at your feet when they come to Firefly. So make sure that you wear shoes that are comfortable. That's one of the most important things. In addition to that, make sure that you're wearing shoes that you don't mind potentially getting muddy, because that's a reality. And even if they don't, they're going to get dirty anyways. They're going to get dusty. So make sure that you wear clothes, footwear mainly, that you don't mind kind of getting jacked up. Because the festival, as we mentioned, the last 2 years, including this year, have taken place in the fall, one of the benefits of that is people are not as dehydrated because the sun is not beaming as much. The detriment to having a festival in the fall is it gets cold at night. So you usually fine during the daytime, but at night it can get cold kind of fast, and it's a little uncomfortable when you want to watch a concert and you're kind of there shivering. So what I would recommend, something that a lot of people were doing last year, and I would imagine they're going to be doing for this year, is wear like a long sleeve shirt, wear a sweater. I mean, you could bring a jacket, but at the same time, you may not feel like tying a jacket around your waist all day. That's your call, but wear long sleeves. You can also wear some shorts too. One of the recommendations is just to dress in layers. So if it does get too hot, you can start to take off some layers. You'll probably have to tie like a shirt or a jacket around your waist, as I mentioned earlier. But it's better to come prepared than to show up looking cute but being too cold. In addition to that too, you want to also make sure that you hydrate. They do sell water here. Water is usually expensive though, so you can bring your own water. So definitely hydrate before you come, and make sure that you bring your own water. The food here can also be a little pricey. I'm not trying to discourage anyone from eating here. I just want to give people a heads up who have never been. So I know some people are going to be coming because this is the 10th anniversary and they kind of want to be a part of that festival history. So these are just little things to just bear in mind. So most people carry money on their debit cards anyway, so it's not really that deep. And they probably use phone apps for their banking system. So I'm probably not really telling you anything you already don't know. Just make sure that you have enough money in your account. You don't want to get up there and swipe and you don't have anything, because sometimes the Wi-Fi here can be like a little jacked up. There's tens of thousands of people here, so you guys can imagine. And there was a boom by a big trash truck, I think, but that's what happens. So yeah, guys, Firefly, day one. Go to DelawareOnline.com for full coverage. We're going to be covering everything inside the festival grounds, letting you guys know what it looks like. If it's muddy, we're going to show it to you. We're going to show you some of the big acts that are playing. We're also going to be talking to the fans, getting a heads up from them about what their experience has been like. Any other kind of crazy stuff that pops up, we're going to provide coverage. I am Lamar, features reporter for Delaware Online, and we're out.